So there's a lot of chaos going on amongst the left right now between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. There is this back and forth that is happening where Elizabeth Warren is claiming that Bernie Sanders, in a private meeting with her, said that a woman can't win in 2020. Okay, this was first floated by anonymous sources, and this is a private meeting between Warren and Bernie. Okay, two people. So there would have to be either Warren telling other people at the time or afterwards at some point. So Chris Cuomo had on Ana Kasparian and Howard Dean. Now, Chris Cuomo's obviously, kind of a centrist, and so sometimes I don't like him for that. But one thing we have to give him credit for, he does bring on progressives. He brought on Ana here. He's brought on Ana quite a few times, I think, like 3 or 4. Same thing goes for Cenk. In that interview that he did with Cenk, I thought was a really good interview because he set him up with those questions to essentially spike it, or dunk it, whichever one you want to use. But Ana Kasparian goes on, and she spits some facts. So check it out. We're going to come back and talk about it.
Ana Kasparian and Howard Dean. Good to have you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good to have you both. Howard, answer the question for me. Look, we knew they were in the same lane. They have to stop being friends. But this kind of fight the day before a debate, who wins?
No, nobody wins a fight like this. But this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. I know everybody wrings their hands and, oh, my Lord, and all this. This is just standard. We got 21 days to go before the primary, the first caucus in the country. And there's 6 people in the race. So people are going to get bumped around, and this is part of that deal.
Ana, in a party that is so into identity politics, putting out something that's better, diversity, there's such big arguments within the party right now. This is not a garden variety shot. You said a woman can't win. That's a heavy blow.
This entire situation is so incredibly disappointing and also incredibly stupid, because in shutting down the conversation and saying that she refuses to talk about it any further, there are questions that need to be asked. What was the context of the discussion? Was he talking about it in the context of where the country is right now? And also, I would love to see anyone in the media hold Joe Biden accountable for literally saying the exact same thing publicly. No criticism, no backlash, none. And we also need to mention that Bernie Sanders encouraged Elizabeth Warren to run back in 2016. And there are multiple videos of Bernie Sanders dating back to the 1980s where he publicly spoke about how he believes a woman can win. And so all of this contextual information is incredibly important to the conversation, and unfortunately it's being left out to paint a particular candidate as some sort of sexist when the facts just don't bear that out.
Well, we don't know what the facts are because Elizabeth Warren says...
We do, though.
But he said it.
We have evidence of...
No,
how do we know
she
he
says,
said
no,
it?
no, no, I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm saying Elizabeth Warren says he said it. So now... we've got something here, right? If you and I have a conversation and I say, no, Ana said it. And Ana said, I would never say anything like that. I said, well, she said it to me. Now we have a problem. Ana, you're saying it's out of character. It's out of keeping. This isn't who he is. Fine. But Howard, to your point, but now this is who he is. And this is who Elizabeth Warren is defining him as the night before a debate.
Well, they're defining each other. And I don't think it helps to call each other liars or whatever. Nobody has used that word yet, but clearly there's one version of this is less accurate than another. Now, obviously, I have no idea which is the accurate version. This is not a good argument to be in. My actual prediction is they clean it up before tomorrow night. The news media will do it, because they'll back off. They'll say nice things about each other. Look, I got in trouble this way in Iowa 16 years ago, getting into fights with Dick Gephardt and John Kerry. And when in a multiple candidate field, when 2 people are fighting, they both go down, no matter who thinks who's right. And somebody else is going to benefit from that. So my guess is both of these are pros. They've been out there for a long time. They like each other, I think, personally. My guess is they make this go away before the debate starts tomorrow night, despite the best efforts.
It would be tough,
right,
because you're going to get 15 million questions between now and then.
Right, that's
Ana,
right.
To the bigger picture here, you have at the top of the ticket, you have Bernie Sanders, you have Senator Warren, you have former Vice President Biden, you have Buttigieg, and really you have Klobuchar is hanging around. They all represent very different things. Is this proof of a party that does not know one or both of two things? One, who do we really want? Two, who can really beat this president?
Well, I think it's important to look at how the polls have changed depending on how the candidates have positioned themselves on the policies. So if you can note, Elizabeth Warren was doing fabulously well in the polling when she was, positioning herself as a strong progressive, as a fighter for Medicare
she
for
made
all,
a run.
as someone
she
who
made
wanted
a run,
to,
and she took some of
she
Bernie's
did.
support during that time. But now
She
there's
did.
been attrition.
And then,
She's lost them back,
well,
and Bernie
there's-
got some, and Buttigieg
she
got some.
has. So let me just finish my point.
Go ahead.
I think the reason why she noticed a dip in the polls, and if you just go back to the timing of all of this, it was after she put out her transition plan for Medicare for
Right.
all. That transition plan made it abundantly clear that she was not actually going to push for Medicare for all. She was really going to push for a public option. Then you see this dip in the poll, right? Now, my problem with Elizabeth Warren is that rather than acknowledging the flaw in her tactic there and changing course, she has decided to bring up a conversation that she had with Bernie Sanders in December of 2018 when he notices a significant rise in the polls. Like, the American people aren't stupid. They notice what's going on. They notice that she's bringing this up at a time when her campaign is really struggling.
Now, listen,
I think it's a bad move on her point.
I don't
want to
give
I
them-
think she should focus on policy.
I hear you. I disagree with you about that. Because if you see what the president did today, not that policy doesn't matter, but you guys are too granular on it. You've got too many purity tests, and you've got a president who tweeted today, ooh, fight, fight, fight. Look what they're doing. You have a president that you're
Right.
running against who said, I'll give you my health care plan after the election, and you guys are arguing on a granular level. I don't know. Now, I know you have sympathies for Bernie, and that's okay. But my point remains
do.
this. At the top of the ticket, Howard, you have a man who is a self-described socialist. Don't yell at me, Anna. I'm saying that's what he calls himself. All right? And you're in a capitalist country that loves the idea of free enterprise, does not like the idea of being called socialist. He keeps moving in and out of a lead with, Elizabeth Warren, who was trying to take that lane, and as Anna rightly says, kind of went back and forth, and Joe Biden, who says they're both crazy to want to propose these kinds of things. How are all these people swapping the lead within margins of error? What does that say about where your party is?
Well, the highest ranking person is at 20%. I think a fifth of our party would like to see substantial change in what's going on in America. In fact, I think it's a lot higher than a fifth. So, look, this is a big tent party. All these points of view are going to be represented. The thing that I really care deeply about is whoever we nominate, whether it's Buttigieg or Klobuchar or Bernie or Biden or Elizabeth Warren, that we all get behind them. Because any one of these candidates is a hell of a lot better than the psychopath that we've got in the presidency right now.
Look, it's easy to call names. It's part of politics. He is going to be difficult to beat. Anna, you know it. Howard, you know it.
Yep,
the
that's
polls
right.
show it. In the states you have to win. The Democrats are going to have to be every bit on their game and together. And I haven't seen those two things in this last cycle. We'll see about this time. Anna, thank you for making the arguments. Appreciate it. Howard Dean, as always, a plus.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So
I thought that Anna did a pretty good job of essentially making the case for why it is that this is complete bogus. Okay, so I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about. So Chris Cuomo says, oh, well, there's no evidence. Like, we don't know what happened at the meeting. But the thing is that's a ridiculous dichotomy to set up, because then two people can have a private conversation. One person can claim something no matter how asinine that claim is, but we don't have any evidence. We don't know the facts. What we have to do is we have to do an analysis of, did he really say that? Does that make sense? So does it make sense that the guy who in the 1980s, multiple times by the way, he was literally speaking to little kids, explained to them that girls have just as much of a right as boys to be part of the political system. In the 80s, he said that a woman can be president, and he obviously endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016. He also prodded Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016. So it's all a bunch of hokum, okay? It's a bunch of bogus, all right? It's a bunch of bogey, if you will. It's total nonsense, okay? And she does make a good case there for that. So when Cuomo says there's no evidence, that's not really what you want to go on. What you want to say is Elizabeth Warren has made an assertion that is really ridiculous, and there's no evidence for her assertion, okay? It's a private meeting. Why would she wait until now to reveal something like that, someone who she's been friendly with up until now? And would Bernie really say that? Of course not. What Bernie was saying was essentially that it'll be tougher for a woman because Donald Trump is obviously going to, weaponize that against them, which is totally, totally different, obviously. Another thing that I have trouble with, him saying Bernie is a socialist, and this is kind of Bernie's fault because Bernie, calls himself a democratic socialist. And you can try and make the distinction, but it still has the word socialist in it. And the traditional definition of democratic socialism, assuming it's now taken this neo turn, the traditional definition of democratic socialism is still socialism. It just specifies a democratic form of government. That's it. So it's still socialism, okay? So look at Eugene Debs, for example. He was a democratic socialist, okay? So that's not even like a distinction between socialism. He used the term wrong. And so I wish that Bernie Sanders had said social democracy, made the difference, and said, no, I'm not a socialist, and made the difference between that. I don't agree with his characterization that, Bernie Sanders even owns that logo or whatever. I also found it odd that Howard Dean, who's a Vermont politician, by the way, former Vermont politician, that is, when he's listing off the candidates that, we may be ready to support, he lists off Buttigieg and Klobuchar first. Just a random thing. Not sure why exactly he did that. Obviously, Klobuchar has 0 shot of winning. I would say Pete Buttigieg has probably like a 1% chance. I think Klobuchar has a 0% chance, but I think Buttigieg has 1 because he has no support amongst African Americans. All of his support is condensed into Iowa and New Hampshire. So after Iowa and New Hampshire, he's pretty much done. Now, there's one last thing, and that is the Elizabeth Warren analysis. I genuinely am not sure whether or not her polling went down because of her flopping on Medicare for All or her reneging on multiple progressive positions. Because to me, what it seems like is, she had this massive boost of growth of like 12 points, okay? There's at one point where she was above Biden, okay? I think that it was just this kind of like little random energy, just this random shift that can't really be explained. There was this interest in Warren for a little bit, but then it kind of just, fanned out, obviously. I don't know whether or not it's true that it was Medicare for All. Her backing off of Medicare for All was the reason for her drop. It could be. I'm not sure. I definitely cast doubt on that. I'm just genuinely not sure as to what made her drop. But with that being said, Anna did a pretty good job on here. Let me know your thoughts on this down below.